One of the most effective ways that I have found to increase player investment in a campaign that they're participating in is giving them new and meaningful options. So, specifically ones that kind of reinforce immersion and character growth and their attachment to the world and to the character that they are playing and embodying in that session or in that campaign. Players love feeling like their choices matter, and nothing reinforces that more than watching something they care about grow alongside them. So, in this video, we're going to talk about how to elevate animal companions, familiars, and downtime progression from passive mechanics into active story-driven elements that feel like parts of the world, not just items on their character sheet or in their inventory. So, let's jump into this episode of Dungeon Master Dive. So, our first topic is turning companions into characters themselves. So, for example, if a player has an animal companion, like a wolf or a dog or a hawk or anything it might be, don't just treat it like a static stat block. Treat it like a relationship between the character and the companion itself. Allow players to interact with, train, and bond with their companion over time. During downtime, travel, or long rests, they can spend time training certain behaviors, practicing commands, strengthen their trust, loyalty, and bond with this companion. So you can use animal handling checks to track progress, and success sort of represents improvised bonding and training, whereas failure doesn't mean that nothing happens, it just means setbacks or misunderstandings and even humorous complications. Teaching a companion that is a wolf or a dog to fetch, on success, it allows them to expand the options for this companion in both roleplay scenarios and combat scenarios, whereas failure can lead to humorous misunderstandings between the companion and the player themselves, causing situations where maybe they're sent out to fetch or to obtain a specific object and they keep coming back with the wrong object because the bond isn't quite strong enough yet. Think very much like Groot in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when he keeps bringing everything back except the fin. So it can lead to those types of scenarios. So for example, let's talk about fetch. On the player's turn, the companion, when they would normally take their action economy or shared action economy, depending on how you run it, the player can have them use this fetch ability, especially if they've trained it up and have improved upon it. So the companion can retrieve an object or drag a dropped weapon over to the player's character, or even help pull a downed ally out of danger or closer so that they can be healed. The idea that in the middle of a battle, a combat scenario where things are going a little bit sideways and your ranger with a beast companion is able to contribute to assisting and supporting the rest of the party by having their animal companion drag a downed ally closer to the cleric or closer to themselves so that they can utilize a healing spell that is touch based when they're out of range. This can be something that doesn't change the layout of the game or break the mechanics of the game, but it can be used as something that assists and supports in this process. Other actions or examples of things that can be trained are like guard, so the companion can stay and hold a position, alerting the party to danger or imposing disadvantage on enemies that try to pass by, or even creating attacks of opportunity from the companion if enemies try to pass through. This doesn't work like an alarm spell where it covers an entire radius, but it can be an assist on keeping watch. It can be an assist on when the group is trying to infiltrate into a building to perhaps steal something or acquire something, and they need someone to watch a door or a window or the entry point. The companion can be used. It's not game breaking because it doesn't stop enemies from pursuing or interacting with the group, but it can create a little bit of a different situation and provide assistance. Obviously, the discretion's up to you as the DM as to how much assistance that provides, but there's a lot of options that can be done here. The key idea is progression. The companion becomes more capable, not because it leveled up, so to speak, but because the player invested time and effort into it. And then, therefore, the player is more likely to utilize and interact with that companion. If you have a player that is very excited about having a companion or a familiar, then this gives you increased amounts of opportunities to actually utilize that as something other than another item on your inventory on your character sheet. Speaking of familiars, we can apply the same sort of philosophy to familiars. So they're often treated like magical tools. They're useful but disposable. And you, as the DM, and working with your player, y'all can work together to change that. Whether it's a cat, a spider, a raven, or something more exotic, you can allow familiars to grow through the bonding and repeated interaction, just like the animal companions. The more they're used thoughtfully, the more applicable they become. So over time, they gain situational usefulness, personality, and narrative weight. This makes familiars feel like characters, not accessories. One of the most effective examples of this approach that I have comes from a player in one of my campaigns who entered into a pact with a Fey entity, essentially a warlock pact. Instead of using the standard sprite familiar rules, we reframed that familiar to become a larger part of the character's story and also a larger part of the pact itself. So this sprite that he gains from this Fey pact essentially became a paladin of the Fey. So he's a very loyal, 12-inch tall defender with a trickster personality. So the sprite itself is devoted to the player and will defend them to the best of its ability, and narratively has done so without the player's knowledge up to this point. Then once the ability was gained to summon, it wasn't necessarily summoning the sprite from the Fae into this realm as much as revealing that the sprite had been there. It made it more narratively immersive for the player. And now instantly they have an attachment to the sprite, almost like a small companion or another friend joining the group. He has personality traits, beliefs, quirks, particularly a mischievous sort of Fey-aligned worldview. And the player has the ability to direct the sprite's actions in standard situations and even during combat. However, and this is important, the sprite is not mindless. This isn't just an object, a magical item that is sitting there waiting to be utilized. When actions have consequences, when a moral or emotional response is required, or when the player doesn't explicitly direct it, I, as the DM, can step in to help guide the sprite's decisions and personality-driven behavior. So this creates a shared narrative space, a collaboration between me and the player. So the companion feels alive and reactive and sometimes unpredictable, just like a real character should. So with all of this, the idea is that we can utilize what would normally be downtime activities during travel, during long rests, short rests, during sections where one or two players are shopping or focused on a different task and the rest are sort of waiting and in a holding cycle. Generally, players will try to fill that space with random actions or conversations that they feel kind of forced to do. This gives them another option for something to do during that time. During long rests or extended downtime, you can allow your players to study a new language, begin to learn an instrument, practice a skill or a craft, research lore or magical theory, allow them to find books that they can then read and learn more about the history, as well as cooperating and training with companions or building bonds with these familiars. You can have them roll appropriate skill checks to represent their progress, track successes and failures over time, and eventually this can lead to new proficiencies, small bonuses or modifiers, and narrative competence in that skill. Failures are just as valuable. A failed attempt can create a humorous situation, introduce setbacks, or spark new roleplay moments, or reveal things about the character themselves that otherwise may not have been touched on. Progress should feel earned and gradual and tied to the character's behavior, not just level ups. I'm a big proponent of finding a logical explanation for why things happen. In real life, you don't just level up and all of a sudden you're better, stronger, faster, smarter, or more magically capable. And so creating that immersion in the game where the level up feels like an earned or a justifiable and logical response to things happening creates more immersion and allows your players to really invest and tie to the characters that they're embodying. Allowing players to grow beyond the rigid class mechanics can help deepen that immersion. When companions improve, when new skills develop, or when skills improve and bonds strengthen, the players become emotionally invested. An emotional investment is powerful. It creates joy when things succeed, it creates tension when things are threatened, and yes, it creates heartbreak when something is lost. That emotional weight is not a flaw. It's a sign that your world feels alive and real when they're in it in those moments. Don't be afraid to let your players learn new things, build relationships, grow beyond their starting abilities, and the more they invest, the more meaningful the story becomes. When companions and familiars stop being objects and start being characters themselves, your game gains depth and stakes and unforgettable moments. That is what can help push a regular or a standard campaign to being an unforgettable or a great campaign. I hope that this helps. I hope that you enjoyed this information. Use it if you like it, and if you don't, that's fine. Don't use it in your game. Leave a like, subscribe, and follow for more, and we'll see you in the next one.